Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest is the one and only Neil Sedaka. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Paul.
It's a great pleasure. I kind of want to go back a little. What kind of music did your parents listen to?
Oh, we had on Make Believe Ballroom on the radio in the late 40s. People like Rosemary Clooney, Les Paul and Mary Ford, Johnny Ray, Joe Stafford. These are the songs I grew up with.
Who would you say is the greatest lesser-known influence on your music?
Oh, I would say one of the great composers. I started as a concert pianist at the Juilliard here in New York. I would have to say either Chopin, Schumann, or Rachmaninoff.
And what about the popular songwriters who influenced your writing the most?
George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Frank Lesser. These were my heroes.
Kind of take us back a little bit to the Brill Building. What was that experience like?
Well, Howie Greenfield and I were teenagers. We were the first team to be signed to the Brill Building. It was a building filled with young publishing firms and young writers, specifically writing for young listeners. And I was the first in the Brill Building to sing my own songs, but I did bring Carole King, who I dated for a time then. She was the second writer to be signed. There were little rooms with a piano, and we wrote from 10 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. It was a very good training ground.
Now, today, or when you're writing songs, what is your preferred place to write songs?
I have two homes, one here in New York and the other in Los Angeles. I'm at the piano. I have to discipline myself and say, today I'm going to write. And it's not easy after 60 years of songwriting. That blank page is quite scary. You have to top yourself. You have to raise the level of Neil Sedaka. You have to write something that you haven't written before.
When you're writing these songs, what is your greatest well of inspiration?
I think listening to contemporary music. I think listening to vocalists. I was always very influenced by listening to different singers. Ella Fitzgerald, Mel Torme, Dinah Washington. These were Barbra Streisand. These were my influences in writing. The human voice.
It's interesting that you think it's important to continue to listen to different recordings. So, of the other people who are writing songs today, who do you think are some of the great songwriters?
Oh, I think there's several. I like Maroon 5 and Snow Patrol and Adele. Who else do I listen to? Well, of course, the great Stevie Wonder and Elton John and Billy Joel. They're the great standard writers, evergreen, writers. But I think that one has to get out of their comfortable sphere when they're writing. That creative force has to push you into something else, another direction. Otherwise, you repeat yourself.
What makes a good song a good song?
If I knew that, I would sell millions and millions and millions. Today, the record business is very, very strange. It's world music. It's computerized on the internet. What makes a good song? Basically, I think a melodic, listenable, memorable tune with a lyric that's meaningful, that has a sentiment that appeals to the masses, if I can describe it that way.
Well, I think that was a very good answer. You've had so many recording artists who have covered your songs, in addition to the songs that you've recorded yourself. But of the recordings that other people have made of songs that you've written, could you pick a favorite recording?
Well, I think Love Will Keep Us Together by the Captain and Tennille. I did the original version on the Sedaka's Back LP in 1975, and they heard it and covered it. It was a marvelous recording, and I got a Grammy for it. But I've been very fortunate. Some of the great singers from Elvis to Frank Sinatra have covered my songs. I think maybe because I write vocally and the range is not too wide. And as I said, the Brill Building taught us to write memorable, singable songs.
Not too long ago, I was talking to a very young girl, and she said that her favorite song was Calendar Girl, a young girl. What's it like to have songs that have lasted that long?
Well, I think everybody wants some form of immortality, and I'm very blessed that I have a gift of singing and songwriting, and to know that these songs will outlive me is a great accomplishment. Funny you mentioned that song, because I have a children's book coming out next year called Dinosaur Pet that's based on the tune of Calendar Girl. My son and I wrote a story about a pet dinosaur. It's illustrated, and it has a 3D song set at the end, and the words fit to the tune of Calendar Girl. And it's wonderful to be able to start little ones to read. This is my second children's book, but it's very funny because my grandchildren, I have 3 grandchildren, they love Papa Neil's old rock and roll songs, and it was their idea for me to change the words to Calendar Girl, and breaking up is hard to do.
On that note, I want to talk about waking up is hard to do for a second. Tell us about that. That's really great. I got to listen to that yesterday.
Thank you. You know, it did very well. It was in the top 10 on many of the Amazons and iTunes. And it's nice to reach young people. It was a book about a little crocodile who had trouble getting up, going to school in the morning, and it also had a 3 CD set at the end, 3 songs, and it is, I just looked on YouTube a few months ago, and there was a 3-year-old girl singing Waking Up is Hard to Do for her parents, and they put it on YouTube, and I was very moved by it. You know, you try to reach people, but I never really thought that the young ones would take to the tunes.
You've had a chance to perform in many places around the world and do things that many people could only dream of. Where has been your favorite place to perform?
Yes, I've been very lucky. I've played almost every country in the world. I was a musical ambassador at the beginning of rock and roll to go to so many countries, better than a politician going. I think my favorites are Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Sydney, Australia, and London, England. I just love the temperament and the climate and the feeling of the people, the spirit.
What do you think music is supposed to do?
Reach the emotions, forget your worries, get you out of your own world. Music can be very therapeutic if you are ill emotionally or physically. It's been proven that music is very therapeutic, and I've seen it. I've gotten letters from people who said that the music has helped them.
What is the best part about being Neil Sedaka?
The best part, I would say, is getting a good table at a restaurant or a theater ticket that's hard to come by. The worst thing is you have to give up your privacy. You know, you have to. I do love people. I'm very fortunate. Even if I'm stopped for autograph or a photograph, I find it very flattering. But you do have to give up your privacy.
Well, I have 2 final questions. One is kind of lighthearted. What is your all-time favorite meal?
Veal parmesan with spaghetti bolognese.
Ooh, that sounds good. Well, the last question. One of the amazing things about technology, you were talking about YouTube earlier. Mm-hmm. Our interviews are able to travel, and we get heard by people all over the world in over 50 countries. So what would you, Neil Sedaka, like to say to our listening audience?
Oh, well, I want to thank them for staying with me. More than 55 years of singing in a very trendy, fickle business. And I think it's a two-way street. You know, I have this creative gift, but I certainly have gotten it back from the audience tenfold. And I thank them for keeping me creative. I just wrote my first piano concerto called Manhattan Intermezzo that I just recorded with the London Philharmonic. And I think I would not have been able to do that if not for people who knew that I started out as a classical musician and prodded me to write something serious.
Mr. Sedaka, it's been a great pleasure to speak to you.
Well, same here. I thank you for calling, and Paul, a very happy and healthy holiday to you.
And the same to you.